זה שיר פשוט, זה שיר קצר, אולי נשמע טיפה מוזר, אבל תדע, כי זו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך, והוא רואה, והוא שומע.
Well, hello, welcome to the practical portion. I am Charlie Brown, and I love, and am passionate about bringing the Torah portions to you in a practical way, in a way we're going to hear today. It is not too difficult. It is not too hard for you. It is near. It is right there. I want to bring it to you in a way that you can apply it to your life, and it doesn't seem so like you can't understand it. I love doing this. It's so much fun. And today I have a very special guest with me as we get into Nitzavim. We're going to be in Deuteronomy 29, starting there, verse 9. Would you grab your Bibles? Most of you are like me and you like to have it down in your hand so you can like write and circle. And so go grab that, get it ready, get your pen. And I am going to ask Dr. Deb to come into the studio.
Yay!
So most of you guys are not strangers to Dr. Deb. You know her for all the places, Yeah. I'm loving on Facebook, the Dr. Deb Today. I feel like I'm like ready for the show to start. Dr. Deb Today.
Yeah. Actually, I plan on turning that into a podcast.
I love it. Coming soon. You heard it first here. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's a privilege. It's a privilege always serving with you. We always have so much fun. And could you just share with us, most everyone knows you. They know you from the Hebraic Roots, the network. They know you from your show there. They know you from you pastored and led a congregation in California for a long time. We don't have to give any years, but it's
right.
a minute. Currently now you're in the leadership at Bet Ami in Oklahoma City at that fellowship. You're an author, you're a speaker, you travel everywhere. You've traveled the world teaching Torah. You have forgotten more than most of us know about this because you're so dedicated to growth. And not just like we talk about this, and you and I are in a lot of the same arenas. We talk about personal growth, but it's not just this growth mindset is about how are we growing in Torah? Is it actually being applied to our lives? And that's what I mean by that. And I love that about you, mentoring women all over the world, discipling them. And so would you just kind of share with us, like, how did you come into Torah? Like, how did this awakening happen for you?
Well, that's a long story, but I'm going to try to give you the Cliff Note version. And well, I had a congregation. My husband and I were pastoring a congregation, just a non-denominational congregation in California. We had about 300 members, and we probably had 400 kids in our youth group. So it was pretty thriving and whatnot. And I happened to watch on TV and one day this person that was a Messianic rabbi, and he was showing all about Passover and how Jesus, Yeshua, was symbolized all through the Passover. And he was giving all that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And so we started having a rabbi come and do Passover at our congregation. Well, then tragedy happened, and my husband, and I won't go into that, but he just flew the coop, decided he didn't want to be in ministry anymore. And so here I am, right? So I was so wounded, I'm not going to lie. It was very painful because we've been married 25 years. It wasn't a short-term relationship, built a congregation, built a counseling center together. Actually, we got our PhDs together. We studied together. We did everything together. So it was a blow. And so I went on a 40-day water fast and went up to the mountains the last 2 weeks of my 40 days and really got deliverance. And with the Holy One, it was just miraculous, the things that he did. And nobody laid hands on me. Nobody,
Nobody screamed demons out of you.
No, nobody screamed at me. Nobody shoved me down. But I found myself on the floor and I was just crying out and crying. And I won't go into that. But when I came back, The reason for the 40-day fast is I was asking the Lord, okay, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stay in ministry? Am I supposed to just go over into the therapy field and tell the church, see you wouldn't want to be you, or
Yeah.
what do I do with this,
Yeah. Yeah.
And he asked me while I was at that cabin, um, have you put your hand to the plow? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he asked me, do you believe you're called? And I said, well, I believe so. We're just having this conversation in my heart back and forth. And he said, once you put your hand to the plow, if you look back, you're not fit for my kingdom.
Oh,
yes. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was like he didn't really give me a choice. So I started going forward, but I never read the Bible again the way I had read it before the 40-day fast. And all of these questions started coming up. And on our board of directors for UCAN, which was the counseling center, just so happened one of the board members suddenly became Messianic. And so he said, and I told him some of the questions I was having, and he was telling me, oh, well, yeah, of course, the law never, expired. It never ended. And he started sharing with me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I started just reading and reading. Well, I went to and researching. I would be up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I didn't have any, husband or anything to worry about. So I would, spending my time studying, and he just started revealing all this to me. And the exciting thing for me about it, and why I've never turned back, is nobody taught me. It wasn't like I was following some messianic guru or something, or I didn't even know there were other people out there that, I was totally ignorant. Torah to me was the movie Torah, the
yeah. Yes.
and so I was
I
like,
mean, really, right?
yeah, I mean, I was totally ignorant. And sometimes that's a good place to be. And actually it was the Lord that led me into all this truth and everything. And I went back and I kept sharing it with my elders, and my elders were all on board. And so we did a flip. We flipped from Sundays to Saturdays. And then what that did, I taught for like 6 months, and everybody was yes and amen. Oh, this is good. I never lost any people when my husband left. I still had 300 people. And then I got Torah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the second Exodus happened. Little by little, there ended up being like 25 of us, and we, my commitment was strong, and I just told God, okay, if there's 10 of us and that's all there is, we're going to serve you with all of our heart, with all of our mind, with all of that. And so we did. And then we grew it back up to a little over 100 again. So, but these were all people that, started off with us in Torah, as they came in, and we discipled them and all of that. And it was miraculous, some of the things I experienced. We had one guy show up one day, and he goes, I had to search you online, and I found you. He said, because I had a dream last night. And he said, it was like a postcard that showed up in this dream, and it was really big. And it said, honor my Sabbath and keep it holy. And that's what the front of the postcard said. So he said, I knew I had to find a Sabbath keeping congregation somewhere. And so I searched the internet. We had miraculous situations like that came in that always confirmed, hey, you're on the right path.
Right.
You're doing what I've asked you to do. This isn't your vain imagination, and it's, you're not wacky. Because quite frankly, I think a lot of people that left my congregation thought, oh, well, her husband ran off and, is living a different lifestyle. Yeah, she's gone over the edge. Bless her heart.
Bless her heart. Yeah.
So,
you know what I didn't hear you say that someone came and brought you a bunch of tracts and pamphlets, and they sat down with you and they knocked on your door and they walked you through like these steps of how to transition into this new thing that you've never heard of before, but instead it was that the word came alive to you. So
Yes.
it all came alive to you personally. He personally led you in all truth. And I'm really careful. A lot of us feel like our family members, we're like, have to beat them down. Like, why aren't you honoring the Sabbath? Why aren't you honoring the holy days? Why don't you see what I see? Because we feel like we've been awakened to something, but instead remembering that the Holy Spirit will guide you and lead you in all truth. And that means them too, right?
Right, right. I mean, if we would only trust, trust is a big thing,
Yeah, huge.
and if we can't trust our families to the Holy One, to the Holy Spirit, Yeshua said that I will leave you
Mm-hmm.
a helper and he will guide you into all truth. He didn't say you're going to guide everybody into all truth. He said he's going to guide you into all truth. Well, we have to trust that he will also guide them into all truth.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't share, but you, like you said, you don't beat them over the head.
No, we don't have to be Holy Ghost Jr. trying to tell everybody like, okay, I'm going to guide everyone all truth because I am Holy Ghost Jr. And I do want to let everyone know that Dr. Deb has a sensitive family matter that she's attending to right now. So if you hear her phone or whatever, please thank you for your grace, because she's just wanting to be available for family members as there's a sensitive issue happening at this time. She's being available, and that's her first ministry. And so we want to honor that. So, hey, stories like this, Dr. Deb, and I have the most amazing fun people lined up that we're doing is starting a new podcast. It's going to launch on September 20th called the Messi-Antics. And I am having the best time just hearing the stories of everyone coming into, how do they come into understanding about his instructions and covenants and calendars and all the fun things about that. That part is fun. But the other part that's really fun is hearing the funny stories about where it was messy, especially in the beginnings. You have a really funny story. Can you share that? Like it's your first Shabbat, right? Wasn't it your first Shabbat?
Yes. It was
Could
my
you
first.
share that? Let's just give a teaser. Like this is what's it's going to be about. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Share that with us.
Yeah. Well, all I knew and my understanding, limited as it was at that time, was that the Sabbath represented the feast of the Lamb, of the bride of Messiah, at the end times. And every Sabbath we celebrate that, just like we do Sukkot. And so all I knew is it was supposed to be really special. You would use your best china, everything. And so I invited all the elders to the house and I served crab legs because I thought, what could be more special than crab legs, right? I had no clue about the dietary laws. I knew that I thought they were done away with. I thought that was all proven in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, and that, that Peter figured that out when the sheet was rolled out and all of that. That's, so I never even gave it a second thought until later, I'm like, oy vey,
That is so fun. I have something to share after this, but thank you for sharing that. The reason I want everyone to hear these things is because one of the things for this season, he's really calling me to live out loud and to show everyone that to be intentional, do it imperfectly, that being kadosh the word is a movement. It's becoming set apart, I don't like the word perfect, becoming set apart. So that people see that, yes, I'm walking this out imperfectly. Today I might serve crab legs, but guess what? Next week I might learn that that's not maybe the best yes. So I'm going to do this next week. And if we're all seeing that, oh my goodness, if that happened to Dr. Deb, and like I shared something on my the Controllers Anonymous. I have a private Facebook group and you're welcome to join anyone. It's just a group for all of us struggling with control. And or maybe you need to learn, you want to be in there so you can tell a friend. Everyone who's in there saying, oh, I should learn this so I could share this with my friend has all said, oh, it's me. And what I love is that he's really showing me, how do I live out loud, honoring everyone around me, honoring the process, but not feeling I have to live fake. And I was telling my husband this story, who did not grow up in church. about how most of us grew up where if it wasn't us, it was our mothers that were driving to church and we have our kids, we're screaming, yelling, trying to get their hair done. They're fighting us. One kid wants to wear a dinosaur costume. You're trying to get clothes and then they change and then they poop their pants and then all this stuff is happening. I don't even know where the dad is. He's just out, checks out. And then we get into the car to go and they're slapping, be quiet, stop fighting with your son. And then as soon as you hit the driveway, you're like, hey, everyone smile.
Yeah. You put on your church face.
And then everyone comes in all really nice and we come in and mom's about to have a nervous breakdown. And this is not really truth. This is not really real. And I just really love walking this out messy in front of each other. I'm not trying to offend anyone with the title. It's just like, this can get messy sometimes. Life gets messy, but God. I mean, every story we go through in Torah, every story we go through in the prophets, we see the disciples it got messy sometimes. It got messy. And so I can't wait to do this. It's really fun. This is a segment that I've been added to each week. It's called Shelf Indulgence. So I always laugh. There should be a shelf indulgence, like some big thing happening. But one of the books I put on there, the very first one I put to talk about is this one. Really quickly, is Peter's Vision. It's Beacon or Bacon by Dr. Robin Gould. And she wrote this book. It's such a $5, I think. Teeny little thing. And she's talking about the message of Peter's vision. So that's an area a lot of people struggle with. Mm-hmm. And I will always tell you, just keep reading. Yeah. Just keep reading. Not what people have told you. Start asking the questions, which I heard you say, Dr. Deb, you started asking questions.
Right.
I didn't know I was allowed to ask questions.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, the reason I started asking questions is because I heard the Holy One speaking to my heart and asking me questions. What do you think this means? And it wasn't until years later that I came to the understanding that that's how rabbis teach. They answer students' questions.
Were you thrilled? Like, oh, I could actually be in a place that actually could ask questions. So right. This is really good. It's a really good little book. If you have friends or something, I always tell everyone for these Becky books, buy one for you and buy one to give away. The second one, let me go in order of what I wrote. And I did put the links everywhere. I just posted it in the comments. I also posted it. I'll post it under the show notes if you're watching on YouTube. The other book, if you haven't read it, it's kind of a fun one to go through, or not fun, but I mean, but it's by Robin Luton, and it's called Valor. And it's a beautiful, beautiful picture. I'll just read that Valor invites you to embark upon a life-changing personal voyage to become God's intended version of yourself. Distance yourself from all the culture's barriers of noise and confusing voices and find a refreshing clarity for your life. This journey will require courage, but the reward is delectable spiritual food for the soul. And it's really a really good book. I love Robin Luton. She's doing one of our Messi-Antics podcast versions. Her and her husband founded Beth Tikkun in Ohio. And then I know you're a big fan of this book. I have one more after this. This is our Shelf Indulgence. If you have not read, this is not for the faint of heart. Guardian Angel. So this is going to talk to you truly about who is a woman. She's the protector. She's the nourisher. She's the boundary setter. She's the spiritual guide of the home. I talk a lot about you're the Isha. The hey at the end of your name means you open that window of revelation and you bring it into the home. This is going to change your outlook on what it is to be a woman in your home. My husband read this before me. And it was powerful to him. Now, I will tell you, this is not a Messi-Antic book. Messi-Antic. It is not it can be messy. It is a very Jewish book. So you can spit out the bones. But I will tell you that, mine's written in and highlighted. And it's just, I feel like you need to read it over and over because it empowered me as a woman to be who God had called me. Did you feel that way? Do you like that book?
Yes. Love it. Love it. Love it. And it does, because, how does it measures up perfectly with Proverbs 31 and what a woman is and what she does.
Exactly. And this one that I have is the abridged edition, and I'm ordering the unabridged edition because I hear apparently this is just a toe in the water that the unabridged is. Do you have the abridged or the unabridged?
I have the abridged.
Yeah, so do I, but the unabridged is like, it's a lot more stuff. So apparently I have to do that next. And then the final book I'm going to do is because often I'm asked, how are you studying? Well, this year, through this Torah portion, through this season of the Torah, I've shared over and over that the Father showed me last year that I wasn't allowed to use any kind of commentary. He just wanted me to come sit by him, and he was going to download things to me. And that's what I have been doing. But I will say one of the books that I have used in the past, which this is kind of next level, I will say for some of you are needing something a little heavier duty. This is going to be this is workbook 5 from the Creation Gospel series from Dr. Holisa Alwine. And she has a book for each one of the books.
Yeah.
So these run around $30, and it's literally the cost for her to print them out and everything. They're so loaded with information. And know that Dr. Alwine is available. You can email and ask questions. You can go on. So she is available again to ask questions about some of her work or what she feels about things. I know she enjoys answering those questions, as long as the questions aren't something that she's already answered in one of the other videos. So we'll go there. But that's our books. I mean, who doesn't need one more book this week? But sometimes I'm asked, what are you reading? What's going on? So I decided I was going to have a section now about that. So speaking of books, segue, you have a really cool book that is literally, you have it in your hot little hands for a final edit to ready to come on the stands. Go for it. Tell us about your book.
It's called What's Lust Got to Do with It? And it also has a workbook in the back, 7 steps to breaking the bondage of your past. Mm-hmm. It's very, I'll just read the back because it kind of tells. This book is a poignant and raw tell-all autobiography giving an account of 4 generations of sexual abuse and trauma and the pain of broken dreams and relationships and promises. It was a painful look at myself and my failings, as well as my faith, hope that I would survive and recover. I also learned that God's hand was always upon me, even in my failures and regrets. I found out in writing this book what far-reaching consequences lust had in my life. It's a story of how lust affects relationships, often when we don't even realize that our lives have been affected in one way or another. Whether you have been a victim of lust by rape, incest, molestation, adultery, or are addicted to pornography, it affects many lives in ways that are unimaginable. Yet it's also a book of inspiration, hope, and redemption. And the last chapter gives you 7 steps to begin your process to heal and recover. And
Thank you for being so brave to write this, because so many people are going to do literally, it is a tell-all.
It is. And I cried a lot and like, do I really need to put this in here? And the Lord kept saying, yes, you do. You've got to I had to be transparent, and so it's a very real. I don't sugarcoat any of the things I did wrong either, and how lust affected that. I was molested when I was 13 by an uncle. And so how lust played out in my life through that one act of lust, how it played out in my mother's life, changed her relationship with me, how it played out with my oldest daughter, until somebody stands up and says, enough. And that's kind of what I love about this week's Torah portion. It's all about standing.
Yeah.
Right. And
standing raw and we're standing raw before him. And before we stand raw before him, because we're hopping right into, because that's like right. The next thing is about this title. I want you to tell women how you're helping them, because I don't want to forget and we run out of time. So how you're helping women with these healing wounds that maybe they've been created in their past by their own choices, by choices that they had no control over, that others imposed on them. One of the ways you do it, I know, is through private coaching. Yes. I want you to tell them how to get a hold of you. And then I will make sure all this is in the show notes. But I also want you to talk to them quickly about your Women of Merit conference in Oklahoma. It's coming soon. Registration's about to open, and I want them to be looking forward to that. And why would they go?
And registration is open right now.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And so we are really, this year, we're really focusing a lot on inner healing, which we normally do, but spiritual, emotional healing, and also just building up the body and preparing us as the bride of Messiah. He said he's coming for a church, a congregation without spot or wrinkle. And it's time for us to get the spots out, get the wrinkles out. It's time for us to stand as the body of Messiah and in maturity. And we can't do that if we're wounded. If we're laying there with all these wounds and bleeding out and afraid to tell anybody. So in this conference, we provide a really safe place to be real, to be authentic, to be vulnerable. We're going to have some workshops. We're also, we ordered a second room for 14 to 20-year-olds. And we have got some fantastic speakers that are going to come in and minister to them. Erica Bronze, Lori Templeton, Stacy Goitzinger, who, you know, is amazing. She of the things she was there last year. I mean, we've got a lot. And I'm not even mentioning all of it. We have dramas and we have worship. If you were at the Surge conference, we have the worship team that was there at Surge, and yay! I know, I'm so excited.
So I was just I was about gonna text you this because I just wanted to see your face as I was sending the text. I had a commitment, and I just wanted you to know I canceled that. So any way you need me to serve you, if you need me to hand out like name tags or something that day, I just want you to know that I'm available that weekend to serve you in any way you need me. So if you need me to like shake hands at the door or clean up or something, I'm there. I want to be there to help you guys. So yeah, I canceled everything and moved it to the first of the year that I had scheduled during that time.
Oh, wow. Wowzer. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not trying to throw a wrench in anything. No, I really mean that. Like if you need me to straighten chairs, I'm your girl. So I want to serve you and be there.
Somehow I can't picture you just straightening chairs.
I'm good. I'm a good chair straightener.
You got too much going. You got too much to say. And
I'm a good chair straightener. I'm a good chair. So let's stand right here. We are. We're hopping into this Torah portion. It's so small. I was telling my husband, this is one of those ones you should memorize. Like I don't want to should on anybody, but really, this is one we could memorize because of it's so small. Reading it over and over and over that we would have it deep in us. And I love that my Bible, I have a Tree of Life version, and it starts out by saying the way that it says, you are standing before the Lord. Like that's the start. That's what this means. This Nitzavim, you are standing before the Lord. Everyone's important. Everyone, he lists everyone. And the covenant is with everyone. That is so cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah, not just this generation, but all the future generations as well.
Yeah. And my covenant's with all of you. And I mean, verse 13, the covenant is eternal. Like she said, future generations. And just knowing that, just sitting that, we're not really a covenant people anymore. Do we really understand the intensity of the creator of all the universe made a covenant with you?
Right. Right. And actually to stand means to stand, remain, and endure.
Oh, wait, you mean when you've done all you can do?
Stand, Ephesians 3. Yeah. Yeah. And
wait, so that's not new. That's not a new thing. Oh, okay. Really not maybe his commentary on Nitzavim is when you've done all you can do to stand.
Yeah. So it's Ephesians 6. I said 3. 6:13 is what it is. But yeah, and we're supposed to take up the whole armor of God, you know, and there's something about standing, you know, there's military. You came from a military background as well as your husband.
I served in the military. My husband served in the military. Yeah.
And so when you're standing, it means you're standing proud. You're standing strong. You're not just like, you know, right. And that's how we stand before God. We should be able to stand proud and strong, but that takes discipline, as you well know, and that takes maturity. How much did you mature from the time you went into boot camp until you came out?
Girl, how much did I mature this week? Can we just be honest? Like, I mean, there has been some recent changing. So it's announce has gone out is I made, the father has been working on me. And I stepped down from the Ruta Cafe as doing the operations, the chief executive operator, executive director, whatever. and just to work on the board and to let someone else take over. And sometimes in the middle of all those things, there's a lot of fears that come on, and just stand in your own strength, and stand and not be ashamed, and stand, and someone might do something better than you, to stand, and he's going to look at you, and can I be unashamed? Can I stand before him? Yom Kippur is coming. Do I stand before him? And have I, am I able to say I've let go of everything from the final year? No, most of us just carry that all around everywhere, but can I stand? And it takes a lot of strength. The other part of you and I both know, we've heard you hear, especially for women, you coach women if they're about to go do something, to do a power pose, right? When you're feeling weak and not feeling very good, you'll say stand and do a power pose, like hands on your hip, do your Wonder Woman pose, or men just do this naturally. They take up more space. But for women, we just like put your arms out before you're going to do something, make yourself stand and take up your space. That's what this reminded me of too.
Right.
Can I stand and just take up my space that I'm called to take up?
Yeah. Right. Right. I heard a person this week, and it was so good because my grandparents were farmers, so I remember all of these things happening. If you have a brooding hen,
okay,
it will sit on the nest and won't get up.
It will peck you.
It will literally die on the nest because it's sitting and it refuses to stand. A more mature hen, one that's been through this process before,
understands
you get up, you go eat, but not only does it kill the chicken that's the brooding hen that won't get up, it kills the eggs as well. And that made me really think about how, with this week's Torah portion, are we really ready to stand? A lot of us are just sitting, brooding on the gifts that God gave you, brooding on the information that you've learned and all of this knowledge, and you just sit on it and it all dies.
Oh, we have been talking a lot in circles of my friends. We've all been saying we believe that it's a season that the Holy One is telling everybody to grow up.
Yes.
It's time to mature and grow up, because you know what? It's not my job to trim your wicks of your lamp and make sure it's full of oil. That's your job.
Right.
It's not my job to do that. Now, part of trimming your wicks and doing all that could be listening to something, but then you have to act on it. You actually have to, are you still where you were last year? And in verse 17, one of the things that will keep you, it said, beware of the root that produces the bitter fruit. And I had a friend share with me that I didn't get her permission to give you details, so I'll just give you the overview. What she said is that when she was praying, God asks her, who are you without your complaints and your gripes? Mm-hmm. Who are you without all that? And she was realizing, if I'm not complaining or griping or about stuff, who am I? And it was like that almost took up the entirety of and I would ask you, who are you if we took away the griping, the bitterness? Who are you if we took away the story about how you were hurt 25 years ago because your husband ran out on you and this happened, or your sister did this, or your blah, 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 a church did this? Who are you if we take that away from you?
I heard a marvelous teaching on that one time, and it was called, Who Would You Be Without Your Story?
Ooh.
It's the story you tell yourself about yourself and about all your boo-boos and your hurts. And this congregation did this, and this person in this congregation did that, and on and on. And that's why I don't go to fellowship anymore, or that's why I don't do this. Or who would you be without that story, that narrative that we constantly run this tape recorder over and over and over in our mind?
Yeah.
And it causes us to be that brooding hen sitting on the nest, never moving forward, never growing up, and killing our offspring, our future offspring. And I'm talking in a spiritual sense, you know.
I have in my calendar. Those are my husband's glasses. I have this. I don't know if you can read it. I don't know if you can read it. It says, "Are you thinking of yourself as a role model today?"
Oh.
And I put that because the Lord's working on that with me. It's like, okay, I have some people. I have this woman who I always, and maybe if you guys know her, she's in Mary Kay. Her name is Carol Anton. And since I was like 17 years old or whatever. She was like national sales director, America. And she was just so glamorous, and she was so elegant and so like such a strong leader. And she was just so powerful. I mean, she was just like, I want to be her when I grow up. Right. She was a mentor to me, and she didn't even know it. And this year was really interesting. The Father spoke to my heart. He's like, you're someone else. No, it wasn't God. It was another Mary Kay national sales director who, by the way, they're passing my book all around all of them. She got back to me and she said, I was sharing with her about how I felt about Carol Anton. And I would go, what would Carol Anton do? And she says, Charlie, you do realize you're someone's Carol Anton now. And I was like, and I saw my little Post-it note I'd scribbled out that I think of myself as a role model. And I want to challenge all of you listening. You're someone's role model.
You are
someone's baby chicks. Those spiritual baby chicks can't die. You are someone's role model. And I'm sorry, it's going to come off harsh, but some of you have been around a long time. It's time to get up.
Yeah.
You know, your legs are falling asleep because you've been sitting for so long. And we've talked about this bitterness and letting this root of bitterness go. And we're coming into Yom Kippur, and I'm going to beat this goat until you all get it. But hearing Hulda tell this story about Yom Kippur, and I'm just going to say, you know what? This is the time when you put everything on this goat and you send it out. All the bitterness, everything you need to forgive, it all goes away. What last year did you put on that goat, and you sent it away, and then you called it back, and now you've made it a pet in the house and you've named it? Or I wrote on my notes here, it's your mascot now because it's your identity, like you just said, Deb.
Right.
It's your identity. This goat is now your identity.
Yeah. And
it's my mascot for the house. The bitterness is the mascot for the house.
And if you're struggling with the same thing you put on the goat last year, then you haven't really put it on the goat.
Yeah. You haven't put it on the goat. Yeah. Because it needs to be gone. Right. And I'm going to challenge all of you. If someone's bringing stuff back up to you, you should call them out. Be like, that should have been on your goat last year. Like, that's a goat issue, because we're in a new year. That should have totally went out. The goat is gone.
Right.
You know, and if you guys don't understand what that means, I want you to go read the story about Yom Kippur. You go talk about, you know, the scapegoat. We're a few portions away that we did this. Yeah. But we can't let that bitterness take a root. I mean, Deb, you counsel women all over the world. You're walking them through trauma. I love the way that you're teaching women to parent their inner child. The biggest thing, you're going in and pulling those roots out.
Right. Right. And because it does become a root of bitterness, and it's, I've got to say this, it's real. I mean, when I didn't say this earlier, but when I was on the floor of that cabin after that 40-day fast, I felt the Lord reach in and grab something deep inside of me, and I felt it coming out, and it hurt. It felt like a root, and he just pulled it out. And I was like, oh my God, this is what deliverance is, but there's nobody here. But it was a root of hurt and bitterness and, you know, mistrust, and all of those things were hooked to it. And I felt it come out. The spiritual is more real than the physical when it comes to that. And I experienced that firsthand. So I just know how real it is.
I was reading, and I'm trying to go back and look where it was in Luke, where, you know, Yeshua's in the synagogue, he's teaching in the synagogue, and then I think they're in Capernaum. And it says then that there is a man comes who's demon possessed, you know, and, you know, if there's a root of bitterness, if you've allowed things, you have a spirit that's just all over you, right? But for some reason this year, when I was reading this the other day, it says in there that he called the demon. It recognized him, and then he called it and said, "Leave." Okay, so he delivered, and it says that the man was delivered, and there was no harm to him. And I was like, "What?" And as I prayed, he was showing me, "I'll pull those things out of you. And I'll heal it, redeem it as if it never happened." It didn't say when they healed the paralytic, he didn't go walking and limping.
Right.
He went walking and leaping. When he comes in, he does that beautiful healing in you. When you send it away, when you let him do the work, when you do the work,
Yes.
trim I mean, there's work that has to get done to be done. There has to be pruning. There has to be a lot of fertilizer. It can be stinky.
As a therapist and as a coach, trauma coach, I won't take a client unless they promise me that they're going to do the work, because there's too many people that will do the work, and I need to move to those people and help the ones that are willing.
And you can't want it for them more than they want it for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And, not everybody, a lot of people today want you to come along and sprinkle fairy dust over them and it's just done.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is when you're trying to change neural pathways in your brain, it takes repetition, it takes work, it takes doing the same things over and over again. But once you get it, it's like riding a bike. Once you learn how to ride a bike, you can go 20 years without riding a bike and you don't have to relearn it.
Right.
And so the same thing works spiritually.
It works, things you've taught me. So, there's been things, if I have an intense, especially for loss, we've identified that, and I'm living transparent for all of you. It will throw me. I have a tendency to go into a panic attack episodes. And for those of you who have ever struggled with panic attacks, you understand when you're like, I can't breathe. And I'm like, this is stupid. You're breathing. Stop it. My mind is telling me how silly this whole thing is. However, I'm walking and I'm trying to talk to, I have to I'll remind you, chewing gum helps, putting something under your nose to change the olfactory. But Dr. Deb was teaching me about doing certain types of movements with your head and your eyes, and you guys will have to hire her to show you all that. But when she did all that, I must tell you that there's other things that have happened in my life that are maybe emotionally triggering to me, where I'm feeling out of control, things I feel, and I'll catch myself, and it's not lost because I'm losing control. So if I feel I'm a little spiraling or dealing with, and I'll slip into ADHD, and all of a sudden I'm like, blah, 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 I'll stop. And I'll do those things because I'm going to do the work.
Right.
And it goes away. I might just reach back, like you said, and give myself a dopamine rush and just rub my neck for a minute and then let myself enjoy that for a second before I go grab an eclair and go eat something stupid. I'll give myself a different dopamine rush instead of it being sugar or carbs. But all of this to be said is, when this bitterness gets in, it's important that he's putting it in here, because he's saying, I don't want this bitterness to beware in case there is among your root producing poison and bitter fruit. Go after it. What's happening? This is the perfect time of year for us. He's in the field. He's showing us wait, that doesn't work. Let's take care of this. What about in your families? What about in your congregation? Is it a person?
Right. Right. And we all have that. We all, there's certain people that it's like fingernails on a blackboard, and you're like, okay. And that's when the fruit of the Spirit comes in, where we have to exercise patience and self-control and, show love. And so that all of those things take practice. They just don't come naturally because we're fallen. And so those things take discipline and practice.
Absolutely. Well, and it says if we don't do it, he's saying, now, if someone hears the words of this oath, this is verse 18, and his heart considers himself blessed, I think I'm good, I'm blessed, thinking shalom's going to be mine. And even though I walk in stubbornness of my heart, and even though I sweep away the moist away with the dry, like I'll take the good, I'll just, meh. Adonai he'll be unwilling to forgive him. For then the anger of Adonai and his jealousy will smoke against that person. I don't know if that's the unpardonable sin, but all I know is it says he doesn't look away from that. We can't live a phony life. Yeah. He doesn't say we can't live real and say, I don't understand this. I'm struggling with this. But if you're like, oh no, I'm going to be blessed. I'm fine. I'm going to pretend like I'm all great. And you're sweeping away the truth of what you need to deal with. He's like, I don't know who you are.
Right. Right. Well, it's like being a diabetic, and you go to the doctor and you expect him to heal you.
Yeah.
But if you're going to eat sugar and pound cake and cookies and all that thing, no amount of insulin is going to keep the disease from progressing.
No,
And
you will lose legs, you will lose toes, you will lose your eyesight. All that is still going to happen.
you know that better than anyone being an RN, so yeah,
It's hurtful to me to watch something happen to people that I know they have total control over with diet and exercise. It makes my heart hurt to watch someone losing limbs because of that and their eyesight. And it's all because of something that's controllable. It
right,
doesn't matter if it's predestined in your genealogy, then just means you have to work a little harder. I don't have a thyroid, so I have to work a little harder to lose weight than everyone else does.
right,
But this is no different spiritually. I might struggle with something you don't struggle with, but it doesn't mean I quit doing it because one tire's flat. I don't go around and slash off the other 3 tires and be like, well, I'm going to toss out the moist with the dry. Meh, might as well sit here.
right,
Then your car's going nowhere. He says then that he's going to burn up this land. Like, why did this happen? It says because they forgot. They forgot. So he's going to burn this land up. Don't we see this with Babylon? I mean, I feel like he's really prophetically telling them, you're going to be put into captivity because you're going to forget.
right.
And we see things coming out of Babylon, like the Torah portions, like their instruction schools that got put into place. Systems were put into place to make sure they never forget again. But don't we do that in our own lives where we put ourselves into captivity to things that, yeah.
Right. Well, and one thing I liken it to, your skin. If you scratch yourself or you get a wound, what happens is, or a puncture mark, you get a scab,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that scab becomes hard and it's like a Band-Aid. Well, that's what happens in our hearts too. Talking about the root of bitterness and all of this that goes on. Our hearts sometimes are full of scabs where we've been wounded and injured. But there comes a time, and that's where circumcision of the heart does come in. There comes a time that the scab has to fall off. And when it does, there's new skin underneath.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's interesting you're using that terminology because I started thinking about, when we lose our sight, when we can't, that ayin, when we cannot see, when we're not spiritually, it says we might have scales on our eyes. One of the things, and I made a comment about, being diabetic, if you lose your eyesight, and this is long story short, when you eat a lot of sugar or carbs, things that turn to sugar quickly, the sugar in the molecule is rough like sand. So as it's going through your vessels, it's making little sores, cuts all inside. So what happens is it scabs up because that's what our body does. It heals itself. So what happens is as the scabs get thicker and thicker, the vessels, blood can't get through it because it's closer and closer until it shuts off.
Hmm.
So your eyes have some of the smallest vessels in them. So that's why you lose your eyesight, is because you have now scabbed. It scabs so much and it has scar tissue now over and over because of all that free flowing, because all the free flowing sugar, because the insulin is what unlocks the cell to let the sugar go in. And you've got not enough keys and a whole lot of sugar. And you can burn it off or you can take insulin. Okay. But so then you lose your eyesight, your toes, feet. You got little capillaries that are small. Your kidneys, very small. That's why they have kidney issues, feet issues, eye issues.
Right.
That's what happens with us, right? We keep doing the same things over and over, and we're losing that flow, and we lose our sight. We have blinders on, like, our hearts get hardened.
Yeah, our hearts get hardened. Just picture a heart just laden in scabs. It's a hard heart. Now, scabs will keep that area from getting injured again.
Yes.
And so when on the heart, when you're talking spiritually, it may have served its purpose for a while, because you're more cautious, you're not trusting, you're protecting that heart. But the scab has to come off for you to be healthy and whole. It has to. And so that, and because it does become, from those scabs, a root will start to grow, and you have this root of bitterness. And it shows up in everything. It shows up in attitudes, how you treat your spouse, how you treat your children, how you treat people in the congregation. And so it's time to grow up.
Yes. And I think when he's telling us here, he will guide and reveal you. He'll reveal all truth to you.
Right.
That's this. He'll show you the bitterness. He'll show you, ask him, just ask him.
Yeah.
Where do I have bitterness? And I don't even know how to pull it out. Will you pull it out? Do I need to do work? Would you show me what to do? He's really faithful to do that.
Right.
Always. I love in verse 28, we're in chapter 29 still, but in verse 28, he says, the secret things belong to Adonai, our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever in order to do all the words of this Torah. This is part of our inheritance. This belongs to us.
Right.
That's cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
But, and the thing is we have to surrender though. Sometimes we think, well, I trust God. Well,
Yeah.
that's really easy to say, but are you willing to surrender what he's asking you to surrender? Because in essence, if we can't let go, we can't surrender to him. And that shows that we don't trust him. You're not going to do it right. You need my help. I need to do this. I've been guilty.
Oh, I am still guilty right now. I
Yeah.
just had something come to my mind that he's like, hello, I've been trying to tell you to stop this. And I'm like, what?
Right.
Or it has to do with another person. In this case, it's something that someone sends me these things every once in a while. And he keeps going, is that honoring to your husband? Is that, and I'll make little comments back, like passive aggressively, like, oh, I don't need this. My husband's way better than that, or something, instead of just saying, this is not appropriate. Stop sending this to me, or so, and it's not like it's horrible. I don't want to, I would never, but it's just enough suggestive that it's not honoring my husband. I wouldn't want him to receive some comment about how cute some girl is, and even though it's trying to be funny, he's really working on this on me. And I'm like, it's just funny. It's not that big a deal. And it's like, I'm like, oh, so when you were saying that, I was like, okay. He's still going to, and you think you're done, you're never done. He's going to be like, okay, now let's go to the next level.
Right.
But what I tell you is he says this, my favorite in verse 11 of chapter 34, the mitzvah that I'm commanding you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it too far off. It's not in the heavens that you should say, who will go and get this for me in the heavens? Because I'm not an astronaut and it's in the sea that you should not be able to cross. No, I'm not in a submarine. I don't know how far deep that goes. No, it says the word is very near to you. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart to do it. But like you said, if we're calloused over, is it in our mouth and is it in our heart to do it?
Right.
Because he says even the outcasts are going to be brought back from the ends of the earth when you go, all this is for us, right? We're talking about going into captivity, talking about forgetting. It's for all of us and it's not too hard.
No.
Well, I'm not a very good student. I'm not as smart as you. I don't study. I'm not a studier like that. It's not too hard for you. He says it's already in your mouth and it's already in your heart.
Right.
You just have to ask him. I don't understand this. It is, I am not doing deep dive studies. This is a parent from this show. You should see, there are people I can send you to. You and I have this conversation, Deb, as I was like, intimidated by having people like Deb studied for years, or we'll have someone like you have Dr. Gina Dyer, Dr. Alwine, or someone come in. I'm like, I don't have to be them. You don't have to be them. You don't have to be me. You don't have to be Dr. Deb. You have to be you. And you say, it's in my mouth, Lord. It's in my heart. Would you show me what I need? How do I walk out your mitzvah today? How do I walk this out today? And he will. Because I think that cracks the scar on that circumcises your chest. I mean, your heart.
Right. No, it does. It does. Can I read a real brief scripture?
I would love that. Yes.
It's in Ezekiel 36:26. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. Then you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers. You shall be my people and I will be your God. And I just love that scripture because if we allow him, he will give us. Yeshua was the ratifier of the covenant. And he gave his blood to ratify that covenant. It was a blood covenant, which cannot be broken. And so his promise is that he will give us that new heart. He will put the right spirit within us. But we have to surrender to the process.
Yes. Deb, I literally, that's my next note, was that scripture verse.
Are you serious?
It's my next note. The reason, and I want to tell you a story about this. There was a time when my husband didn't believe at all. My daughter is doing her own thing. She's grown up in church and the word, and but everyone's doing their own thing. And I remember, I wish I had it with me. I would have pulled out. I remember having these pictures that I put up all around the house. Do I even have it up here? Do I have all my pictures in there? No, maybe. No, I don't. But I had pictures of them up in my closet, walk-in closet with my little beach chair. And I put them up everywhere. And I'm praying. And I'm just like, Father, and I'm praying his word. And that's one of the scriptures. Father, I thank you that you've taken their heart of stone and you've turned it into a heart of flesh. And you are causing them to obey your commandments. I thank you, God, that you have faithful to complete what you've started and you are not quitting on them. I mean, this is me. But then every day I would do that. Thank you that you've taken their heart of stone and you turned it into a heart of flesh and you're causing them to obey your commandments. And he says, what about you? And thank you for taking my heart of stone and turning it into a heart of flesh, causing me to obey your commandments. I'm so busy praying for other people.
Didn't he?
He's like, what about your heart? Oh, wait.
But isn't it always so much easier to see and take care of everybody else's hurt?
Yeah.
And it's a form of avoidance.
Yeah.
It's the way we don't work on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We recognize fully what everybody else needs and what everybody else needs to do. But when it comes to doing the work for ourselves, that, we'd rather run around. And that's what your Control Freaks Anonymous is really what it's all about. You're running around trying to control everything else to keep from doing what he wants to do in your heart.
Right. And which is that full surrender.
Right.
Surrender that my way is obviously not doing really well. And we have like a minute here. I just want to remind you it's not too far off for you. He's saying, it's not for someone else to go get it and bring it back to you from the skies or the seas or to do the deep dives and do all that for you. It's very near to you, and you, it's you, and yes, you, no, not me. Yes, you, it's near. And he says, it's in your mouth and it's in your heart. And it's not for all of us to constantly be doing these deep dives. He wants you to, we finish this up with choosing life, right? Are you going to choose limitations, choose life? Or choose death, right? Choose this day. I mean, seems like a no-brainer. Choose life.
Well,
right?
When you going back to where we were, when you sit on that, when you're a brooder hen and you're just sitting there, you've chose death for yourself and for the little chicklets that could have been born.
Yes.
That you could have discipled.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I pray that this has been a blessing to you. Just hang around with me, Deb. When this is all over, I want to chat with you, but please keep your eyes open for what's lust got to do with it. You want to go to Women of Merit, thewomenofmerit.org, correct?
No, womenofmeritministries.com.
That's what you go to. And that's, someone type that in the chat. Women of Merit Ministries.com.
Yeah.
I have to see it in my head. Okay. So go there, get yourself registered. I mean, go and just experience some healing, some beautiful worship, some healing. It is an interdenominational healing event. You get to meet beautiful women, and I would love and encourage you all to go and be part of that. Thank you, Deb, for sharing your life with us so unapologetically. I love you for that.
Oh, I love you too.
We'll see you guys next week. We're going to hop into the next portion. We are almost done with this thing, and it's exciting. I pray that you have really great plans coming up for the holidays, and we will see you next week.
זה שיר פשוט, זה שיר קצר, אולי נשמע טיפה מוזר, אבל תדע, כי זו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך, והוא רואה, והוא שומע, ואכפת לו מכל דבר קטן. תדע לך, שזו עובדה, שאלוהים אוהב אותך.
זה שיר פשוט, זה שיר קצר, אולי נשמע טיפה מוזר, אבל תדע, כי זו עובדה שאלוהים אוהב אותך.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.